Hello, everyone. Welcome to Avaya University and our Overcoming Chronic Pain curriculum. I'm Andy Anderson. My partner Ike Allen and I are co-mentors and the co-owners of Avaya. Thanks so much for being here. In this next class, we are talking with Dr. Manas. Dr. Manas is an NAMA board-certified Ayurvedic doctor. He is an acclaimed wellness consultant, and he has extensive training in many different healing modalities like yoga, meditation, Reiki, and he's going to be talking with us today about pain as growth. We talk about where pain originates from, obviously from the brain, and he talks about really shifting your perception of pain to, instead of being a bad thing, changing it into it is a good thing that is ultimately meant to protect you so that you can heal. It's your body's way of letting you know that something is wrong, something is out of balance, so that you pay attention to it so you can get it to heal. And he talks about what he means by using pain as this growth mechanism, the importance of not ignoring your pain and becoming aware of your pain, addressing it, and growing through it as a really important part. And the different types of pain, this is emotional pain, physical body pain, mental pain, spiritual pain, pain from your past traumas or any different kinds of things that you've experienced in your life, and how that can relate to physical pain that you're experiencing now potentially. He also talks about Ayurveda, given that he is an Ayurvedic doctor. He talks about how using things like Ayurveda can help you heal from chronic pain. And Ayurveda, if you're not familiar, it is the science or study of life. And ultimately, it is this science that gets to the root of the pain. And it also can be very preventative of future pain as well, because it can detect when you're out of balance quickly so that you can do something about it, so it can prevent future pains from becoming chronic and things like that. Several strategies that you can take on right now that Dr. Manas is going to tell you about are doing a full body oil massage, and this being a form of self-care that creates heat throughout your body by vasodilating. Your blood vessels get larger and more heat is created through your body by creating things like lubrication throughout your body. He talks about the different kinds of oil that you can do these massages with, as well as this bases on your type of pain that you're experiencing, as well as your body type. Talks about meditation being one of the most important, most amazing things that you can do in your life. And this is because you're literally changing your physiology. More than likely, you have heard about the amazing benefits of meditation at this point, because it seems to be everywhere these days. He talks about the difference between active meditation and passive meditation. Active meditation being, this is when you focus on something in a meditation. So maybe you're listening to a guided meditation, maybe you're focusing on a mantra or an affirmation, maybe you're in a yoga class and a teacher is guiding you through an active meditation. So this is when your brain is obviously still active. And then a passive meditation being something like transcendental meditation, if you've heard of that, vipassana. This is when you are focusing on making the space between your thoughts even longer, so that you have more time where you're actually not thinking at all. And this, he talks about being the most beneficial type of meditation. And then he also talks about the research of meditation and how people who are long-term meditators actually still feel pain, just like everybody else, or most everybody else, and still experience stress, but become more resilient. So talks about how long-term meditators can become more resilient, and so the pain goes away more quickly. So now, without further ado, we will head over to our fellow teacher, Dr. Manas. Thank you so much for being here with us, Dr. Manas.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So let's dive into this topic of pain. Where does pain originate from? Let's just start there.
Pain originates in the brain as such, right? But the interesting thing is it's a very mental component of our physiologies. So if I was to ask you to point to your left knee, where would you point? If I was to ask you to point to your right eye, where would you point? If I was to ask you to point to your brain, where would you point? Right? But if I was to ask you to point to your mind, where would you point? And so this is where it sort of becomes diluted and almost esoteric in nature, is that where pain originates isn't really understood yet, right? We talk about so many different types of pain, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, even spiritual pain, where There's a lack of disconnect with you and your soul, or you and yourself. And so all of these different types of pain can become chronic. The only thing that categorizes itself as chronic pain is something that is prolonged over a period of time, right? One of the things that we talk about is how inflammation is good for you.
Mm.
I always say pain is a good thing, right? It's meant to protect you. If I step off a curb and roll my ankle and it puffs up, it's my body's way of protecting it until it heals.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with pain. If I feel pain, it's my body's way of saying, hey, look, pay some attention to that area. I'm trying to heal. I'm trying to protect it, right? But what happens when that scar tissue or when that pain becomes chronic? It becomes prolonged over days, weeks, months, years on end. And that's when it becomes a problem, where it is no longer helpful, but rather a hindrance to the physiology.
Got it. Okay. So what do you, because the title of your talk today is pain as growth, what do you mean by that? What is pain as growth?
I really want to press that point where we're talking a lot about how people experience pain and different types of pain. And I'm sure everybody has spoken on the different modalities to overcome it. But I don't want people to ignore pain. I want people to be able to address it, to learn from it, and to grow through the pain. Right? There's an analogy that Dr. Andrew uses to talk about pain and stress and just discomfort. Right? There is the analogy of a lobster. Do you know how lobsters grow their exoskeleton?
I do not.
Lobsters they start off very small and they have this large shell that they grow into. And grow to a certain size, it becomes very uncomfortable for them. It becomes very painful, very stressful for them. And so what they do is they go hide under a rock where they're not exposed to predators. They shed that exoskeleton and recreate a much larger one. And then they go about and they grow into that and do the same thing over and over. But the ideology behind it is a lobster's awareness to feeling that discomfort, to feeling that pain. Imagine if that lobster went to a doctor and took a Valium or took a pain medication, right? And never felt that amount of pain or never felt that discomfort. There would be no reason for it to change. There would be no reason for it to shed its exoskeleton and grow into a larger one, right? And so when I say pain through growth, what I mean is that when you're able to understand the origination of your pain, which is what Ayurveda focuses on, we address the root cause of the issue, right? When you're able to understand the root cause of the issue, when you're able to move through it and process it in a complete manner, you're able to grow from it and hopefully not make that same mistake, right? Whether it's physical, mental, emotional, whatever it is.
Got it.
And so this pain through growth is something that a lot of people are very hesitant about nowadays. And when I say nowadays, I mean my generation. I'm talking about millennials,
Okay.
right? Because we want comfort, right? We want to feel plush. We want to feel taken care of. We want to feel adapted, right? We don't like feeling out of our zone. We don't like feeling uncomfortable. And so there's so many people who are suffering from all of these quote unquote chronic emotional and mental disorders, such as anxiety, depression, even simple things like worry, stress, nervousness, right? And it all stems from this feeling of not wanting to feel discomfort. Whereas if you're able to understand why you're feeling the way that you are, you're then able to move through it and move past that into an area of growth.
Got it. Awesome. I love that you touched on that, because that is definitely something that has not really come up in this event yet, and I think that's so important for all of the millennials watching right now, that is addressed, because that is so true. The difference in generations and how we all deal with life in different ways, and how we've been raised, and all of that. So you mentioned Ayurveda just briefly. So I'd love it if you could give us a little background on what Ayurveda is for people who don't know, and then how can that help people manage, overcome their chronic pain?
Sure. Ayurveda literally translates to the science or the study of life. And so when we talk about Ayurveda, we approach it from a very holistic perspective, right? And there's a lot of things that are addressed in Ayurveda that Western medicine just doesn't have an answer for or doesn't really talk about, right? And the beauty or the wonderful thing that I love about my job now is that I can sit down and talk to a patient for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours if needed, right? I have that level of flexibility. But the reason we do that is because we ask very weird questions. We ask very personal questions in our consultations, right? Like I'll ask if you're happy with your sex life, or I'll ask if you're paying your bills on time. I'll ask if your kids are stressful or joyful, right? And these are questions that your doctor would never ask you. He doesn't care if you're able to make your monthly payments on time. But if this is the cause of your stress and this is the root cause of your physiological imbalances, then I need to know about it.
Right.
Right. If your stress and anxiety is manifesting as an upset stomach and you've had these IBS like symptoms for the last 3 months and you've been behind on your taxes for the last 3 months, I know what the cause is now, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you have excess gas. It's not that I need to give you medication for stomach ulcers or anything like that. It's simply to take away that stress.
Right. Got
And
it.
we do the same thing when it's associated with pain. Like I mentioned, there's so many different types of pain. When we talk about mental pain, emotional pain, when we talk about physical pain, somebody who is recovering injury or somebody who doesn't know why or where they're experiencing pain or discomfort, right? And that's, I think, the most important distinction between Ayurveda and allopathic medicine is if you go to the doctor and you tell them that you have pain, what is the first question they're going to ask?
Where?
Where?
Yeah.
And so until it becomes localized in a specific area, until you can point and say, hey, it hurts right here, or it hurts right here, there's very little that they can do for you. So it has to be localized, and it has to be a quote, quote, repeatable offense where it's happened multiple times, right? And this is where Ayurveda differs, because we look at why that happened. What are the precursors to feeling that pain or that imbalance, right? And we'll talk about things like excessive talking as an imbalance, right? If you go to the doctor and you tell them, hey, I talk too much, he'll look at you crazy and send you
Mm-hmm.
home. But in Ayurveda, we know that that's a vata imbalance, that causes a lot of excess air and space in the physiology. And so anywhere you have these pockets of space, you're going to have a lot of grinding, a lot of bone on bone, or a lot of discomfort when it comes to your joints. And so we can address that imbalance before it localizes, before you're diagnosed with arthritis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty of Ayurveda. We treat these small little minor imbalances. And that's why it's such a preventative form of medicine.
Got it. So for the person watching right now who is tuning into this event because they already have a major issue with chronic pain in a localized area, and they come to you, let's say they have back pain or neck pain or something like that that's pretty significant and affecting their quality of life. So how do you address that, because it's already gotten so bad?
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple different things that we can do. One, we have to figure out whether it's a structural issue, okay, or a myofascial issue. So associated with bones, tendons, ligaments, or more of nervous system and muscles, right? Once we address that, there's different approaches. One of the best things that you can do, and this is a tip for everybody listening, no matter where you have pain, no matter how intense, severe, minimal your pain is, even if you're completely healthy, one of the best things that you can do is something called Abhyanga. Abhyanga is a full body oil massage. And you can use almost any type of oil you want. Either sesame or coconut is probably the most common. But the reason for this is because you are putting emphasis on all different areas of your body.
Got it. Can you spell that for us?
Abhyanga, Abhyanga.
Awesome. Thank you.
It is a form of self-love, self-care, right? But the reason it's so impactful, especially with these chronic pain conditions, is because it acts as internal as well as external oleation. My mother is a physician, but she's also an esthetician by trade. And one of her go-to sayings is the biggest joke in the Western world is the phrase for topical use only. Right? There's nothing that we apply to our skin that isn't absorbed, that our body doesn't have to assimilate and then work to eliminate. And so whether you're talking about lotion, makeup, sunscreen, whatever it is. And so oil is something that we eat internally that is absorbed into our skin. The friction that we generate creates heat. Heat, we know, acts as a vasodilator, so it opens up all of the channels, opens up all of the nerve endings. It creates lymphatic drainage. It creates just movement and flow in the body. And it creates oleation and lubrication. And so anytime somebody is experiencing chronic pain, the best thing that they can do is, one, bring awareness to that area, and two, oleate it from the internal as well as the external.
Got it. And is this something that people can literally do to themselves, or do they need to have someone else massage them? Or okay.
It takes less than 3 minutes to do it by yourself every day, before a shower, before a bath, before exercise, whatever it is. And we're not talking about, spending 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes giving yourself a nice luxurious massage. You can absolutely if you want to, but this is something that you can do every day, incorporate it into your daily routine so that you are helping yourself create a sort of structure and relationship with yourself.
And is there a specific type of oil that you recommend to do this?
If there's a lot of heat and inflammation in that specific area or in the body in general, the two main types of oils that we want to use are either coconut or castor oil.
Okay.
Castor oil helps to draw out the excess heat, and coconut oil we know is a little bit more cooling in nature. Right? If they're a very thin, light, frail person, a lot of dryness in the body, you want to use a heavier oil, something like olive oil or avocado oil or sesame oil.
Got it.
And then if they're a very heavy set, large person, maybe even obese in nature, they want to use a very thin oil or a very light oil, and maybe even just do dry brushing to create more of a lymphatic massage as opposed to oleation.
What does that mean, dry brushing?
Dry brushing, you can use like a silk glove or a mitt, or even if you just use your hands, what you're trying to do is create friction and move the lymph in the body.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. I love to, get actual things that people can start to apply in their life right away. So I think that's super helpful. So let's talk a little bit about meditation for a minute. What are your thoughts on how meditation could help people alleviate chronic pain?
Meditation, in my opinion, is one of the best things that anybody can do for any sort of pain, right? Whether it's, like I said, mental, physical, emotional. And the reason being is you are literally changing your physiology when you meditate. Let's start talking about the two different types of meditation. One is passive and the other is active. Active meditation is where the mind or the brain is still active. It's engaged. So you're either focusing on a mantra, it's a guided meditation, a community meditation, you're counting the number of breaths, whatever it is, your brain is active.
Got it.
Right? Passive meditation is something like transcendental meditation or primordial sound or vipassana, where you're trying to elongate the space in between your thoughts, right? Where you're trying to create silence and instill peace in between thoughts.
Got it.
And so you're not going from thought, the train of thought that we talk about, but more thought gap. The easiest way for me to help people understand this is thinking about the moment right before you fall asleep. Right? You don't remember your last thought. You don't remember falling asleep. But in that moment, you know you're aware of your body, so you're not quite asleep yet, but you are at complete silence. Breathing becomes a little bit more deep. It becomes, your respiratory rate drops, and things just automatically start to quiet. I often ask myself, right, if I know half as much medical information as I do useless song lyrics. Right? You'll hear a song that you haven't heard in years and instantly know every single word to it. Right? Why is that important? Why can I remember some things and not remember others? Do you remember the color of your childhood bedroom when you were 10 years old?
I think it was white.
Do you remember what you had for breakfast on this day, January 10th, 2019?
No.
Why?
Not relevant, I guess. Not important.
Now, if I was to ask you, where in your body, in your physiology, is that memory of the color of your childhood bedroom stored? Could you tell me? Could you point to a muscle fiber, a heartstring, a neural synapse, any part of the brain, any part of the body that say, hey, this is the memory right here? There is not a single cell in your body that is the exact same as it was when you were 10 years old. So where's that memory stored? You can call it whatever you want. There's so many different names for it: subconscious, prana, atma, self, unbounded awareness, so many different things. But it all relates to what we would consider the ineffable. And when we talk about pain, and especially chronic pain, in terms of meditation, you are physiologically restructuring the neural synapses of the brain to heal yourself, right? The reason meditation has been so successful with PTSD patients is because you can rewire the brain to say a loud sound isn't a bomb or a mortar going off, but it's a balloon popping or a car backfiring, right? And you can do this over and over and over again. You talk to long-term meditators, and they all experience the same thing. There was actually a study done with short-term meditators, people who had just learned meditation a year ago, but have been practicing consistently for a year, and people who have been consistently practicing meditation for over 10 years. Right? And what they did was they hooked both these groups up to little electrodes, right? And they were monitoring their brain waves and brain patterns. And then they gave them a little zap. In both groups, the area of the brain that's associated with pain lit up, right? But the difference was the long-term meditator group, the area of that brain didn't stay lit for quite as long.
Interesting.
So what does that tell us? It's not that they didn't feel the pain. It's that they were able to bounce back from that pain much quicker than short-term meditators.
Got it.
Right? They become more resilient in nature. So it's not that if you meditate regularly, you won't ever feel pain or you won't ever feel stress, but you're able to come back from that and bounce back from that much easier than somebody who is not meditating, who doesn't have that connection with the self.
Got it. Awesome. So do you recommend, you started off talking about the two different kinds being active and passive. Do you recommend people do one or the other or both, or what are your thoughts on that?
Active meditation is very easy for anybody to do. Okay. Children can do it. Even if you are unable to quiet the mind, anybody can do it. Okay. It's very easy. Passive meditation is very difficult. I won't lie to you. Okay. It takes a lot of practice. Think about it. How long can you go without having a thought? A couple seconds, a minute, 2 minutes? Ideally, can you go 20 minutes twice a day without having a thought, being in a state of silence and stillness?
Not yet.
We're not yet. That's the goal. That's why we call it a practice, right? Whether
Yeah.
it's yoga, whether it's meditation, it's somewhere along the lines.
Mm-hmm.
But passive meditation, in terms of these neurosynapses, in terms of rebuilding gray matter in the brain, in terms of calming down the central nervous system, passive meditation is by far the most beneficial.
Got it.
Active meditation is more of a mindfulness technique, right? Where you're creating a little bit more of a self connection, creating a little bit more awareness, but the brain is still active. It's not truly at peace or at stillness.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So for people watching who are struggling with chronic pain right now, do you have a daily practice you recommend for people to get, let's say they're beginners or they haven't been meditators yet? Is there a way that you suggest that they get started?
Yes, and the technique is actually very easy. It's from a yogic perspective, we say that there's a finite number of breaths, right? And so the slower you breathe, the longer you live, because the less breaths you take, right? From a medical or a scientific perspective, when you take very deep breaths and you are activating the diaphragm and moving the diaphragm, taking deep belly breaths and slowing down your breath rate, you are activating the parasympathetic nervous system, right? That mode of being in rest and digest. And so one of the best tips or tricks that I have for people is to take one 30-second breath, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can try it right now if you'd like.
Yeah.
I'll set a timer, but it's essentially a 10-second inhale, a very slow inhale, 10-second hold, and a 10-second exhale. You want to try it?
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay. Go ahead and sit up straight. Exhale completely and begin. Hold. And slowly exhale. Good. How was that?
It was good. I do a lot of yoga, so I always find the most challenging part the extending the inhale. That is more
Yes.
challenging for me than the hold or the exhale.
And you can break this up however you want, right? You can do a 15-second breath where it's 5, 5, and 5. You can do 45 seconds where it's 15, 15, 15.
Mm-hmm.
However you want. But the whole point of this, and you can do as many of these breaths as you want. I usually tell people to do 30 of them a day. You can do this in the car, you can do this at your desk, you can do this while you're exercising, whatever it is. It's very easy, and you can do as many or as little as you want. But it really helps to slow you down and bring a little bit more awareness internally.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, until you understand your pain, there's very little that you can do. You have to be able to address your pain, learn from it, and then move through it. And that's all that growth through pain means. Until you are uncomfortable, until you are discomforted, there's no reason to change.
Right. Right. Got it. Awesome. Thank you. I love that. Thank you for bringing us through that exercise and relating it back to pain as well as growth through pain. So I love that. So I'll ask you your last insights and if there's anything else you want to share here in a minute, but I do want to make sure that you get a chance to talk about your free ebook. So everybody, there's a button below this video right now that leads you over to an ebook that Dr. Manas has for everyone. So could you share about what that is?
Yeah, it's actually my father's book called Change Your Schedule, Change Your Life. And the ebook is a practical guide for you to fill in and fill out on a regular basis for changing your habits, right? We always say the hardest part about my job, my responsibility, is giving somebody their recommendations, right? Because it's so easy for me to list out 50 things that are absolutely important for you to do. Right? But if you're not able to incorporate them into your daily routine, it's pointless.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to tell a mother of 3 who works full time to cook 3 meals a day. It's just not feasible.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so it's almost like a negotiation that I have to go back and forth with the patient to see where they can make some adjustments, where they can make some sacrifices, where they can incorporate some things into their routine.
Got it.
And so this ebook is a great chance for you to take a look at what you do on a daily basis. Today, we are almost on autopilot, right? We wake up in the morning, we shower, we jump in the car. We can probably drive to work with our eyes closed because we've done it so many times, right? We go through our job, we go through our entire day almost without having a new thought or a fresh decision or a fresh choice to make. Right? We know our favorite restaurants. We know what we're going to watch on TV when we get home. Like everything is just laid out for us. We know what we like and what we don't like. But when you're making conscious decisions, you have the ability to say this or this, right? When I sit down, I have the ability to pick up a book or turn on the TV. Whichever one I'm doing, I know that I'm making a conscious decision to do so, right? When I come home from work and my low back hurts, I can either crawl in bed or I can do some light stretching. Mm-hmm. Either way, I'm making a decision. We often don't give ourselves the ability to make these decisions. We don't give ourselves another option because we don't think about it. And when we talk about this conscious decision making, it's what we do. In Ayurveda, we say that you are not what you eat, you are what you digest. Mm-hmm. Right? You're the product of metabolism of all of your experiences. And so what you do on a daily basis is what sets the tone for your future. And so I implore you, I plead each and every one of you listening to this, pay attention to what you're doing on a daily basis and really understand the crux of the matter as to why you're doing what you're doing. Mm-hmm. It will change your life.
Awesome. Thank you. Yep, absolutely. Are you making a choice in a moment? Or are you just being totally driven by autopilot in turning on the TV or opening the book or whatever the choice it is that you make? So any last insights, Dr. Manas? Do you have anything else you'd like to share as it relates to chronic pain, as it relates to Ayurveda, as it relates to anything that we've been talking about here today?
They researched and they interviewed a bunch of the Forbes most wealthy list, right? Most successful people. And there was one common denominator. They all said that they were comfortable being uncomfortable. And so again, my parting message to all of you is don't be afraid of pain, right? Learn from your pain, learn through it, grow through it, and you will come out the other side much stronger and much happier than ever before.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for doing this and for all the work that you do in the world. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. Yep. And again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. She'll have all of my contact information at the bottom of this. We have a beautiful clinic in Santa Cruz, California. If anybody is in the neighborhood, I'd love to meet you and say hi. You can always call our clinic as well at 831-462-3776.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
Namaste.
you, Dr. Manas. And thank you, everyone who is watching right now, who is listening right now, for showing up for yourself and being open and willing to take in all this new information. And we will see you really soon. Thanks. Take care.